Hi everyone, this is Presto from Music is a Journey. I just finished recording a video which you are about to see, and at the end of it all I realized that I had put the microphone on top of the camera like I always do. However, I had neglected to plug it in. So my apologies if the sound quality is inferior to what it usually is. I think it's usually not so great anyway, but just so you know, I'm aware of that problem. Okay, let's get on with the video. Welcome back, music fans, to another Ranking the Albums video on Music is a Journey here. I'm Peter Scove. If you've never seen any of my Ranking the Albums of videos before, the way I do it is I don't give my opinion. Instead, what I do is I check the internet to see what other people's opinions are, how they ranked the albums of a particular band, and then I total up all the rankings of the various albums, divide by the list of the number of lists the albums appear on to find an average ranking, and that's what I present. So, just the other week there, I did my video on the first 10 albums of Rush as part of my first 10 albums of a band series. And after I uploaded the video, then YouTube recommended that I watch Classic Rock Review's video of his ranking of the Rush albums. I've got to say that the fellow on that channel, he speaks very succinctly, very concisely, very eloquently, and he managed to talk about those albums, give an analysis about each of Rush's 19 studio albums in about 20 minutes less time than it took me to talk about 10 albums. So pretty impressive, I think. Anyway, after watching his video, I then got the idea to check other ranking videos on YouTube, and I found a total of 10, actually 11, but one of them was 3 people talking, so I didn't want to get all 3 people. I just stuck with 10 other ones, and then to round it off to a dozen, I picked 2 lists off the internet. So what I checked was, of course, Classic Rock Review's ranking, as I said. Sea of Tranquility, always can count on a decent ranking from Sea of Tranquility. Notes Reviews, someone named Starman2112, what's his favorite band? DK Music, he actually picked 5 Rush albums to be in the #1 spot because he said all of them were perfect. But he did eventually break it down to 3, 5, 4, 2, 1. 3, 5, 4, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have Gary of the Elysium. I've never seen any of his videos before. Drew's Reviews. He had some interesting choices with some albums that people generally place fairly high. He had them kind of around the middle. And then some which are usually floating around the middle or a bit low, he placed up very highly. So that kind of added some imbalance to the balance, I guess. But hey, it's all about everyone's different opinions, which is actually what I found was very interesting while checking these lists over. Robert's on my turntable. He didn't have 3 albums, so 3 of the albums here, the aggregate score is divided by 11, not 12. Excelsior Music Reviews. I've actually recently been enjoying a lot of his rankings. His videos are actually, again, he can talk about an entire discography of 15 to 20 albums and keep it to around 20 minutes. I'm in awe. And the other one was Zach D Productions. The one I didn't check for this ranking list here was Tastes Like Music. That's the one that had 3 people, each of them giving their own opinion. But if you're interested, check them out. Tastes Like Music. And then I also checked Ultimate Classic Rock's ranking and Louder Sounds ranking on the internet. So without further ado, let's get started. I should keep this on my lap. So, coming in 19th place, this is Hold Your Fire, for what is it, 1987. The average ranking was 16.1 with a high ranking of 11 and 4 low ranking placements of 19. So the general opinion of this is that in spite of it being a Rush album and with, a lot of good music and even some good tracks, overall, it's the 80s, that kind of, 1987, late 80s sound quality that bothered people the most. The guitars are kind of twangy, and I think, there's a lot of synthesizer, and the sound just doesn't really appeal to most fans of Rush. However, songs like Force 10, Time Stands Still, a lot of people love that one. The Mission and Prime Mover get cited as being some of the top tracks on the album. Prime Mover is actually one that I would choose for any mixed Rush playlist of spanning their career. I would choose Prime Mover from this one myself. So that's 19th place, Rush Hold Your Fire. coming in 18th place, and just barely, with an average score of 16.0, was 1996's Test for Echo, with a high of 11 and a low of 19, but only one 19th ranking. The total aggregate score of the ranks was 192, which puts it only 1 point lower than the next album we'll talk about. So really, really close. The general thoughts about this album, there's a lot of heavy riffs on here, some good heavy riffs, but overall the album seems somewhat directionless for a Rush album and is easily forgettable. However, people do cite the tracks Driven and the title track as being key tracks off the album that they enjoy. One reviewer, one ranker, said that he actually wouldn't really care to hear this album ever again if he didn't have to, but Driven is one of his favorite Rush songs. I actually also personally like Time and Motion. I think it's one of the more proggier tracks on the album and explores some different moods. I do feel that the keyboards in that song are kind of superfluous. Like, they don't really need to be there. And in an interview I read with Geddy Lee some years back, he actually echoed my sentiments. He said, reflecting back on it, maybe they didn't really need the keyboards. Personally, I think there are a lot of great heavy riffs. There's a lot of really good music. The weak point on this for me is that I feel Geddy Lee's voice is just too smooth and calm and relaxed. He doesn't really give it the edge that he does for some of their other more, I guess, heavier or harder rocking albums. Anyway, that's 18th place, Test for Echo. And in 17th place, with a total aggregate score, total aggregate isn't that the same thing, of 191, just 1 point up from Test for Echo, is 1989's Presto. Now this one here got, actually the average was 16.0 when rounded up, but the real average was 15.916. Yeah, it made that kind of a difference. All right, again, a high placing of 11, and low placing, oh, I'm sorry, I got my notes mixed up. This one had 4 19th place placings. This one had 1 19th place placing. Yeah. So, sorry, yeah, Presto doing just slightly better than Test for Echo. Again, most people saying that this is just not a particularly memorable or interesting album. Following Hold Your Fire, you know, those two kind of close together, being of the same period, I guess. People, of course, citing The Pass as being one of the key tracks. Show Don't Tell, Chain Lightning. There are still some good memorable tracks off of here. I actually find The Available Light, Anagram for Mongo, and so on are some tracks that I really enjoy off of this. The one thing for me about this album is that the sound volume is a bit low. I mean, all of these are part of the Rush Remaster series, or at least, you know, up to Roll the Bones, up to Counterparts. And they all have a pretty decent volume and enjoyable to listen to without having to crank it all the way. But Presto, I find I have to knock it up a couple of notches. One song I really want to mention, Anagram for Mongo, because I really think the lyrics are ingenious. Every line of the song has a word, has 1 or 2 words that can be spelled from another word. For example, in the chorus, there is no safe seat at the feast. Safe and seat can be spelled from the words of feast. Take your best stab at the beast. Both best and stab can be spelled from beast. And every line is like that, like danger, dare to be grand, danger, dare and grand can be spelled from danger. There is tick-tock in atomic, and cosmic is largely comic. It's really an ingenious song, lots of fun. I always wondered what the for Mongo was, anagram for Mongo. Is this for somebody whose nickname is Mongo? And just out of curiosity, I played around with the letters, and I found for Mongo you can actually spell moonfrog, if you rearrange the letters. You can spell goof norm. You can spell from goon or go on form. Just some of the possibilities for rearranging the letters for Mongo. Anyway, that's Presto in spot number 17. So spot number 16 went to Vapor Trails with an average of 15.0, high placing of 8, and a low placing of 18 on 3 lists. This, of course, being the album when Rush got back together again after Neil Peart's departure, where he was off doing some traveling and soul-searching after suffering 2 family tragedies within a space of 10 months. Anyway, they were back. They took 14 months to put this album together, so they really took their time. One of the main criticisms at the time was just that the mastering was too loud. It's a bit clipped and, you know, a victim of the loudness war. The album was re-released later on with a warmer sound, which actually I still haven't got yet. It's been in my Amazon basket for years. There are a lot of really cool tracks on here with some great riffs, again, great lyrics and so on, but I think for a lot of people it was kind of like, welcome back, thank you, and now let's see what you're going to do next. All right, 16th place. In 15th place, all coming from around the same period here actually, is Roll the Bones. It seems this whole 1987 up to, what, 2001 period, all those albums are down here on the bottom for some reason. Anyway, Roll the Bones coming in at 14.3. 2 ninth place placings as a high, and 2 low placings in 18th. Did I say that right? A lot of people, actually almost everybody, prefers this one to Presto. Some people placing it just, you know, 1 or 2 positions above Presto. I actually honestly prefer the songs on Presto more, but the sound quality or volume on this is actually better. Dreamline, Bravado, and Roll the Bones all being cited as good tracks. Bravado is my personal favorite, just it has that beautiful melody, and I think of it as a kind of pair with The Pass from Presto, because both of them are beautiful songs, lovely melodies, great music, and very thought-provoking lyrics. This also introduces Where's My Thing, the next in the series of Rush instrumentals, the first one since YYZ, and the first in the series of 3 over the next 3 albums. Yeah, so Roll the Bones. The title track, I never really cared all that much for the rap part. I kind of take it for what it is now, but I do love the chorus and the whole idea behind the song, Roll the Bones, take your chances, get up and move, do something with your life. I can dig that. All right, in 14th place, look, we're all in the same era here. Here comes Counterparts. So Counterparts getting an average of 11.8 though. Roll the Bones was 14.3, so 11.8 does set it up, you know, almost 3 points higher. High ranking of 2, that was that one guy I mentioned at the beginning who placed some of the lower ranking albums up near the top. That was his number 2 choice here. And a low ranking of 18. Most of the rankings put it between 9th and 15th place. This, of course, seeing Rush after the whole, you know, 80s thing and early 90s thing, returning finally to a heavier sound, more heavier guitar distortion, not all this, you know, twangy, slashing guitar sounds of the 80s. Animate, a lot of people citing as just a brilliant track. I love the first 4, including Stick It Out, Cut to the Chase, 2 good, heavy rockers, and Nobody's Hero, a beautiful song, and with the symphony playing along with the band, it's really lovely. Yeah, overall a pretty strong album. However, in the end, a lot of people say that after listening to it, they really don't remember all that much about it. So that was one of the reasons why a lot of people ranked it a bit lower down. Nevertheless, though, like, just if you listen to it and just take it one song at a time, I think it's a pretty cool album. Okay, where are we here? Caress of Steel coming in 13th place. This just ever so much slightly above Counterparts. Counterparts at 11.8, this one at 11.75, achieving a high ranking of 5th place by one person, and another person putting it in 19th place. That was the same person who gave Counterparts 2nd place, by the way. Caress of Steel being the much maligned 3rd album that seemed to be caught between the older hard-rocking Rush and the newer progressively oriented Rush. A lot of people saying that this album is really the underdog, but much a favorite. And honestly, I think there are some great songs on here. Yeah, I commented more on this on my video about Rush's first 10 albums, so I won't linger on it too long. But anyway, a lot of people having good things to say about it. Okay, let's see here. That puts us up to 12th place, and again, just slightly above the previous album, now with 11.5 as an average. This is Snakes and Arrows, Rush's album from, was it 2006? Their second to last album. Lots of really cool tracks. I was very glad to hear somebody mention both Alex Lifeson's acoustic instrumental Hope. I mean, it took him that long to give us an acoustic instrumental, as well as the instrumental Malignant Narcissism, which I just love. It's, you know, Geddy Lee got himself a fretless bass at the end of the recording sessions and just spontaneously started playing something, and then they made a track out of it. It's pretty cool. There are also some really cool tracks on here. Like the opening, for example, Far Cry, and the closing, We Hold On, plus several others. But the one complaint that I heard from one person mentioned, I kind of have to agree, is that it's just really long. Both Vapor Trails and this one have 13 tracks, and if you think, you know, back in the day, you know, Rush would give us albums of maybe like 6, 7, 8 tracks, and other bands at the time also like 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 tracks depending on the style of music. And, you know, 35, 40 minutes, you were done. And it seems that with the CDs coming out, bands take longer times to make an album and then just pack it with a lot of songs. And what happens is you get that same sound, same style that the band is, that mode the band is in at that time, and then they just give you lots of material rather than a little bit now and a little bit 2 or 3 years later. So yeah, just you get in that atmosphere and it just gets stretched out for a long time. Maybe it could have been cut back like about 3, maybe even 4 tracks, or have the kind of regular album and then include like 3 tracks as bonus tracks from the session. I don't know if it would have made a difference, but still, it's a really cool album with the band exploring a lot of their abilities. Okay, Snakes and Angels. So 11th place goes to Power Windows with 11.2. Gosh, we had this 11 point something series for 4 albums here. High ranking of 5, low ranking of 17. The main complaint about this one here just being it's this, you know, 80s synthesizer sound. And honestly, for me, I find the synthesizer sound on this album is just a little bit sharp in my ears. I appreciate the music, especially songs like Marathon and what was the other one? Grand Designs. I really like the songs and the music. I just find the sound of the synthesizers and some of the other sounds are a bit sharp and bright for my taste, so they put me off a bit. But I do remember Neil Peart saying that he thought this was one of their better albums, I guess speaking from a musician's perspective. So that's Power Windows in 11th place. So now moving to the top 10. Coming in at 10th place then is Rush, the debut album from 1974, getting 10.83 as an average, with a high ranking of 6 and a low ranking of 19. Somebody actually put this at the bottom of the heap. Compliments about this is that even without Neil Peart, we can already hear Geddy and Alex really lock in together for some great hard rocking, heavy rocking music. John Rutsey doing a great job on the drums for a hard rock band, certainly. But of course, it's not Neil Peart's drumming, it's not Neil Peart's songwriting, and so, you know, some of the lyrics are kind of a bit corny there for the early 70s, you know, or mid 70s anyway. Need some love. In the mood, and so on. Anyway, so that's the debut album in 10th place. And moving to 9th place, Grace Under Pressure from 1984, right? Grace Under Pressure getting 9.5 as an average, high ranking of 6, low ranking of 15, and this is actually the first of the albums to actually score a low ranking above 19, 18, 17, even 16 for that matter. All the previous albums, at least on one list, fell somewhere between 17, 18, and 19th place. But this one, its lowest rank was actually 15. So, congratulations. In spite of it being an 80s album with lots of synthesizer, a lot of compliments went to this album for the songwriting, the quality of the songs, even the production, getting a really good balance between the synthesizers and the guitars. And as I said in my previous video, I felt the guitars on Signals were a bit weak in the mix, but they're back here giving Alex some power again. Congratulations, Alex. And just, yeah, some overall really great songs with lots of really thought-provoking lyrics. Mostly great things to say about this album. Grace Under Pressure 9, 8th place goes to Fly By Night. Fly By Night actually kind of shares the same score as the next album I'm going to mention, but I'll tell you why it's below this one in 8th place. Average score of 8.5, high of 3, low of 14. Rush's second album, the first to feature Neil Peart. Still some songs left over from the John Rutsey days, like Best I Can, for example. Of course, the By-Tor and the Snow Dog, lots of really cool stuff on here. Certainly a step up for Rush as a hard rock, heavy rock band of the 70s, and as a band on the threshold of getting into progressive rock, heavy progressive rock. Lots of cool stuff, and it seems that, you know, most people seem to recognize it as an album worthy of the top 10. So, sharing the same score, 8.5, is Clockwork Angels. And Clockwork Angels is actually just ahead of Fly By Night because Fly By Night's highest ranking was 3. Clockwork Angels' highest ranking was 2 first place choices. 2 first place choices. As well, a low ranking of 12, whereas Fly By Night had a low ranking of 14 on one list. So overall, it sounds like Clockwork Angels should be better, but the average of all 12 lists gave it the exact same score as Fly By Night. But since it seems to have, you know, a little bit higher ranking in some of the lists than others, I put it in one spot ahead of Fly By Night. Rush's final album, and yes, of course, it is also a long album, you know, as with the others, but this time we've got a story. So each track has a reason for being there, like it's a chapter in the story. So that it has that many tracks on it is cool. One of my favorite Rush tracks, Headlong Flight, is on here. A lot of really great songs on here as well. Some people kind of being lukewarm about this album, but a lot of people saying that, you know, as your final album, as you know, the end of the band's studio career, this is really a great way to go out. And too bad there weren't more bands who couldn't do the same thing. Okay, let's see here. Fly By Night, Clockwork Angels in 7th place. 6th place. 6th place goes to Signals. This being the final album produced by Terry Brown, Rush now bringing the synthesizers more to the forefront rather than just as a kind of, you know, background rhythm instrument or occasional rhythm instrument. They really come up as a main rhythm instrument. And as I said, Alex Lifeson's guitar, I feel, is a bit back in the mix, which loses some of the power that should be there. One interesting thing, Classic Rock Reviews mentioned that in one thing he read, a music reviewer or music critic spoke to Neil Peart about this album and said, you know, the first couple of tracks are about teens, subdivisions, teens, you know, trapped in the suburbia, and the analog kid also, you know, thinking about his dreams, but you know, his mother calling him, but you know, again, like this idea, you can't really escape from where you are. But it moves up into things like Digital Man and The Weapon and New World Man, where it's like becoming an adult and the world kind of expanding, but again, still kind of being limited in some way. And then finally you get to Countdown, which is, you know, the launch of the rocket, but maybe symbolic of us leaving our confines and branching out into the unknown. So anyway, this music critic spoke to Neil Peart about that, and Neil Peart said, "Oh, you noticed that, did you? We hoped nobody would." So interesting thought. Okay, so now we get to the top 5, and this is, as I said in my last video, these are essential Rush albums, and these are just from the same run, these 5 consecutive albums. The order is not chronologically, though. Coming in 5th place with an average of 4.55, A Farewell to Kings from 1977, scoring a high ranking of 2nd place and a low of 11, with 4 3rd place rankings on the different lists there. I've already talked about this in the previous video. Of course, this is the one that has closer to the heart, Xanadu, which Rick Beato said was Rush's probably their finest composition ever, Farewell to Kings, and Cygnus X1, which is one of my personal favorites, if not my favorite. And I gotta say, I recently watched a video from Out Loud Reactions, a guitarist who reacted to this song. His reaction was priceless. I mean, he was so hooked on the music, even the kind of spacey, atmospheric parts. He just felt the tension building up, and when all heck broke loose, you know, he was right in there. He said listening to this song was kind of like looking at the presents under the Christmas tree at Christmas as a kid and thinking, okay, which present is mine? Which am I going to open next? What's going to be in it? And I really appreciate that, because for me, both Xanadu and Cygnus X1 are not rock songs. They are soundtracks for the story in the lyrics, and Rush really worked the music. There was another reviewer, a reaction person, who listened to this song. He said he didn't seem to really get what it was about, but he said one part of the music had him going around like this, and like that's when the Rocinante is going into the black hole. It's caught in the swirl. This da 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 da. They're going into the black hole, man. Anyway, A Farewell to Kings in 5th place. Maybe a bit surprising to find Hemispheres in fourth place, since a lot of people seem to consider this Rush's ultimate prog album. Certainly an album with basically no weak tracks. The entire side one, the Cygnus X1 Book 2, a fabulous composition. And then side 2 with Circumstances, a short but really cool rocker. The Trees, loved by many people. And La Via Strangiato, however you want to say it. Just one of the coolest rock instrumentals ever, I think. Love watching classical composers react to that one. Okay, oh, what did it score? Hemispheres got 4.26 as an average, with one first place ranking, one 12th place ranking, and then 9 of the scores fell between 2nd and 5th place. Okay, top 3. 2112 with 3.75, one first place ranking, one 8th place ranking as a low, and 4 second place rankings. The album, of course, that, brought Rush forward into the position where they can say, we will take it all from here by ourselves. Thank you very much. We've got this. And, just basically allowing them the freedom to do things as they liked. The whole side 1, the fabulous 2112 story there, the science fiction story, lots of heavy stuff in there, great composition, many parts. And side 2, a lot of people saying it's kind of weaker compared to side 1 because side 1 is just so fabulous. But even as a side 2 of just a 70s hard rock album, I think there's a lot of great tracks on here. Pretty much any track is enjoyable on here. I guess it's just overshadowed by the greatness of side 1. Right? Second place, Permanent Waves from January 1st, 1980, scoring 3.75. Wait a minute, didn't 2112 also score 3.75? Well, yes it did, and 2112 actually even had a high of a first place ranking, whereas this one's highest position was second place. However, 2112 had a low of 8 on one list. This one's lowest ranking was 5, and basically 6 fourth place rankings. So overall, the scores are the same as 2112, but it seems that the favor of it just is that slight bit higher depending on who you talk to. Anyway, there you go. The end of Rush's lengthy prog epic period, getting into a little bit more concise tracks, but still technically brilliant. The Spirit of Radio and Free Will being on here as some of the standout tracks, as well as Natural Science being a favorite and also one the band enjoys playing live. That brings us to first place with Moving Pictures. Of course, you knew this right from the very beginning that this was going to be first place, didn't you? Average of 2.16. With 8 first place rankings, the lowest being a 10, and then also 2 second place rankings. Yeah, this is perhaps the starting point. Anybody who's getting into Rush might want to start here. Some people finish here, but if you like what you hear, keep going. Side 1 is just, again, perfect. It's 4 perfect songs. They're each brilliant in their own way, each different from one another. Absolutely fantastic. One person mentioned that because side 1 is so brilliant, side 2 tends to pale a little bit. And I do agree. I love the camera eye, but for me the camera eye is kind of like the thick part of the tail, with Witch Hunt and Vital Signs being the thin part of the tail. I like them both, but just they don't stay with me as much. I feel somehow that they're a little bit weaker perhaps in their impact, particularly Witch Hunt, which has such a dark heavy riff, but it just doesn't seem to have any bite, like a sonic kick to it. It's dark and heavy, but it just doesn't, like weigh on my brain kind of thing. But it doesn't matter. Anyway, Rush Moving Pictures, the #1 Rush album, average #1 off of 12 different ranking lists, and there you have it. That is the average rank of all Rush's 19 full-length studio albums based on 12 lists off the internet. I hope that is helpful to you some way, or at least enjoyable. If you like, leave me a comment about what your favorite albums are, or even how you would rank them. I do read every comment, and I do respond to every comment, because I just don't get that many, so I've got time for that. And I appreciate comments and likes and all that kind of thing. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll catch you in another video in a few days maybe. All right, see you then. Bye.